You think heating a house takes a roaring fire, stacks of wood, constant feeding, flames licking the walls like some medieval hall. That's what we've been taught. But listen carefully, because here's the uncomfortable truth nobody tells you. One single log, if you understand heat the way nature does, can keep a home alive for 48 hours. Not cozy, not luxurious. Alive. And in a blackout, in a collapse, alive is everything. Picture the silence after the grid drops. No furnace hum. No thermostat click. Just cold air creeping along the floor like it's hunting you. Your first instinct is panic, then overcorrection. You burn too hot, too fast. You turn precious fuel into smoke and ash in a few reckless hours. Fire feels comforting, but fire is greedy. Heat is not fire. Heat is stored energy, and the moment you understand that difference, the rules of survival change. Here's the thing. Physics never explains in a classroom. Your house is not a space that needs heat. It's a mass that needs temperature. Walls, floors, stone, brick, water, even dirt beneath your feet. They're all batteries. Thermal batteries. When you burn a log fast, you heat the air, and hot air is the worst storage medium on Earth. It rises, leaks, escapes, and laughs at your effort. But when you burn slowly, deliberately, and force that energy into mass, that one log stops being firewood and starts becoming time. This is where the ancient mistake comes in. People think survival heating is about flame size. It's not. It's about surface area, oxygen starvation, and thermal inertia. A dense hardwood log contains an absurd amount of stored solar energy. Oak, beech, maple, they grew for decades, capturing sunlight one molecule at a time. When you split them thin and burn them hot, you're basically throwing years of stored energy out the chimney in an afternoon. When you burn them whole, starved of oxygen, wrapped in thermal mass, you're stretching that release into days. Imagine a stove that barely glows. No dancing flames. Just a quiet, red-eyed core. That's not inefficiency. That's control. By restricting airflow, you're forcing the log to smolder, not combust. Combustion is chaos. Smoldering is negotiation. The carbon breaks down slowly, releasing heat at a rate your house can actually absorb. That heat soaks into the stove body, into surrounding stone, into water containers nearby, into the floor beneath it. The air stays cooler, but the environment warms, and that warmth doesn't leave when the fire goes out. Now let's talk about the trick that makes 48 hours possible instead of wishful thinking. Thermal mass placement. If your stove is surrounded by thin metal and empty air, you're wasting energy. But wrap that heat source in brick, stone, concrete, or even thick clay, and suddenly the fire isn't heating you, it's charging a reservoir. Old masonry stoves figured this out centuries ago. 1 burn per day, sometimes less. The stove gets dangerously hot for a short time, then radiates gentle warmth for hours and hours after the flame is gone. That's not magic. That's physics doing what it's always done when humans stop fighting it. Water is the unsung hero here. A gallon of water can absorb more heat than most solid materials you can fit in a room. Place sealed metal containers of water near the stove. Not on it, not boiling, just absorbing. As the log smolders, the water heats slowly, quietly. When the fire finally dies, that water becomes a silent heater, bleeding warmth back into the room through the night and well into the next day. This is why old survival manuals recommend water barrels inside shelters in cold environments. It's not just emergency drinking. It's thermal buffering. Of course, none of this matters if your heat is leaking like blood from an open wound. Here's where people underestimate how brutal winter physics really is. Heat loss isn't dramatic. It's patient. Drafts under doors, single-pane windows, uninsulated walls, they siphon energy nonstop. Sealing a home during a blackout is as important as feeding the fire. Blankets over windows, rugs on floors, closing off unused rooms so you're heating volume you can actually defend. Survival heating isn't about the whole house. It's about creating a livable core and retreating into it like a turtle into its shell. And here's a darker truth most people don't like to hear. Your own body is part of the heating system. Metabolism generates heat constantly. When you cluster sleeping areas close to the thermal mass, when you reduce airflow at night, when you layer intelligently instead of overheating the space, you reduce how much energy the house needs to steal from the fire. In a real collapse scenario, people survived winters not by burning more wood, but by wasting less warmth. This section is based on practical field survival experience rather than formal academic sources. Now let's talk about the log itself, because not all wood is equal, and choosing wrong cuts your time in half. Dense hardwoods burn slower because their cellular structure restricts oxygen penetration. Soft woods ignite fast and die fast. That's great for starting fires, terrible for sustaining heat. Moisture content matters too. Slightly seasoned wood can actually extend burn time compared to bone-dry splits, because some energy is spent driving off water vapor, slowing combustion. Too wet, and you lose efficiency. Too dry, and the fire races. Balance is everything. The final insight is the one that separates survival thinking from comfort thinking. You don't need constant warmth. You need temperature stability. Let the house cool slightly at night. Let the thermal mass do its job. Resist the urge to check the fire every hour. Every time you open airflow, you're accelerating the clock. Trust the system. Trust the physics. One log burned correctly is not impressive because it burns long. It's impressive because it changes how time works inside your walls. So when the lights go out and the cold comes crawling, remember this: fire is loud and dramatic, heat is quiet and patient. Civilization taught us to consume energy aggressively because energy was cheap. Collapse teaches the opposite lesson. Slow down, store warmth, think in hours, not flames. One log can keep you alive for 2 days, not because it's special, but because you finally stopped fighting the way the world actually works.